Hello once again, everyone, and thanks for joining us for Tuesday's edition of Alaska Weather, 19th day of January 2021. I'm Dave Percy, meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. First up, we've got on the hazardous weather graphic up over Fort Yukon, right in the middle of a winter weather advisory area there for the Yukon Flats, and including Chapyitzik and surrounding areas there, Beaver. Anyway, that's for snow, and that's out for tonight until 6 a.m. Wednesday morning for blowing snow and blowing snow, maybe picking up another inch or so. And with winds, gusty winds will create visibilities less than a half a mile at times, maybe gusts 35 miles an hour or so. For tonight, especially over the, over the Eagle and 12-mile summits. Those were two areas highlighted in that advisory. And out west there's a winter storm watch out for the Yukon Delta coast, Norton Sound, and the south coast of the Seward Peninsula, as well as the Bering Strait coast, and of course St. Lawrence Island. That's for the storm rolling up into the southeast Bering Sea tomorrow. And this watch is out begins 6 a.m. Wednesday, actually tomorrow morning, and stays out until Friday morning at 6 a.m. So quite a period there. And again, a watch possible winter storm, possible blizzard conditions are in the forecast, the winter storm watch, but it's not a sure thing. It's just a watch as opposed to the warning. And looking for winds gusting 55 miles an hour with 4 to 7 inches of snow, and that could create some whiteout conditions or visibilities less than a quarter mile at times. And otherwise, that's it for the watches, warnings, and advisories. Got some leftover clouds from the big storm that rolled up into southern Alaska yesterday. That's actually pulled off into the northwest territories of Canada there. And rainfall, precipitation letting up. In fact, sunshine breaking out over south central Alaska, Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet area today from kind of south to north there, ahead of the next system that's south of the Alaska Peninsula and pushing the clouds up into Kodiak and the Alaska Peninsula, also in Bristol Bay, and then that extends northwestward along another frontal boundary there all the way to the Russian coast with cold upper low pressure surface in the loft out over or near just east of the Komodorskis there, west of Shimianat 2. Cold core low there with kind of unstable air, cold air out of the Arctic there coming out over the open water. And then down to the south, some clouds just catching the Adak area. Otherwise, the southeast coast kind of drying out today. Had precipitation scattered around just about everywhere there, but amounts are on the light side. And for example, Klawock picked up about 1/10 of an inch in the last 12 hours, and Juneau only had about 3/100 of an inch. So winds were lighter as well. And rolling this through again, that break will continue. That's over from the Kenai Peninsula there. Western Prince William Sound back to the northwest. I'll continue to shift northward as that low bears down on Kodiak Island during the evening hours tonight. On the chart today, you can see the precipitation and wind starting to come up, especially on the southwest side of the island, as that 980 millibar low just south of the Alaska Peninsula continues to move slowly east or east-northeast. Otherwise, the Aleutians today, not too bad. Central and eastern areas, kind of lack of storminess, made for mostly cloudy skies and basically dry, winds fairly light. And then that low there east of the Komodorskis with the numerous snow showers or just flat out periods of snow. Otherwise, central interior, not too bad, dry, variably cloudy. And again, drying out over south central Alaska, just some lingering isolated showers, pretty much even ended this afternoon. And not too bad for the southeast coast. Winds not all that brisk. That's kind of breezy though, 15 to 25 miles an hour in areas. And then we had clouds, scattered snow showers or flurries up over the area from the northern interior on out to the Arctic coast. And for tonight, trough up there will keep a chance of light snow or flurries and fog along the Arctic coast north slope with lower visibilities there, but south of the Brooks Range, pretty nice into the central interior, Seward Peninsula. And St. Lawrence Island, fairly light winds and clearing, calm before the next storm. And low pressure, weak low pressure will keep snow showers in the forecast there with cloudy skies from the southwest coast, Yukon Delta coast, Nunivak Island, northeastward there, up the Yukon River Valley a ways to the Nulato Hills, southern Nulato Hills, and Alaska Range, and at least most of the Kuskokwim Valley should be dry with the snow showers hanging up on the Kuskokwim Mountains. Otherwise, that low spreads increasing wind and rain to the Kenai Peninsula, to a lesser extent, Prince William Sound and the North Gulf Coast. Look for scattered rain and snow showers over the northern panhandle tonight, with that real weak trough but high pressure at the surface tending to dry it out. Over the southern areas will continue to dry out, maybe a little bit of clearing, and some clearing possible also with the Alaska Peninsula ahead of that next system that brings gale and storm force winds into the Aleutians late tonight. That pushes northeastward tomorrow. Snow and blowing snow increase along the southwest coast, Cape Newfoundland up along the Yukon Delta coast, with periods of light snow still with that low pressure area that's pulling northward there. It's low center over the Brooks Range, the long mountains with the trough extending to the south, and still kind of unsettled, but not too bad for the North Gulf Coast, and about the same for the Panhandle. Outlook for Thursday, we've got high pressure really starting to clear it out over the southeast coast and eastern Gulf of Alaska, as well as the North Gulf Coast. Copper River Basin, just variable clouds. Tanana Valley, 40-mile country. Same thing, variable clouds, probably cooler temperatures with more clearing and fairly light winds. But low pressure driving northward, snow and blowing snow going with it northward there. And another weak low moves to the Kuskokwim Bay area along that frontal boundary. That'll keep it wet, periods of rain, Kodiak Island and northern Bristol Bay. Just a chance of rain or snow showers into central Cook Inlet, southern Kenai Peninsula, Port Muller, Homer, over to maybe Seward, just a risk of some rain there that far east. And another system pushing some moisture and warmer air into the central and eastern Aleutians with a warm front, but winds don't look too significant at this point in time, at least up through Thursday afternoon. Otherwise, lows tonight, 30s for the southeast coast, 20s Kenai Peninsula, mid-30s Kodiak Island, teens Matanuska, Susitna Valley, Copper River Basin, and lower teens for the Kuskokwim Valley. Up north, either side of zero there for the central interior to the Brooks Range, and anywhere from 5 to 12 below for the north slope on down to Shishmaref, 5 below St. Lawrence Island, and upper 20s, lower 30s out west Bering Sea, Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula. Highs tomorrow, 35 to 40 for the Panhandle, 30s for the North Gulf Coast, lower 30s South Central Alaska, lower 20s Copper River Basin, but still mid to upper 30s for the for Bristol Bay, Kodiak, lower 40s. And highs below zero for the north slope, and single numbers in teens for the central interior. And out to the west there, high temperatures mid to upper 30s for Bristol Bay, lower 40s Alaska Peninsula, upper 30s central Aleutians, mid 30s Pribilofs. And for the lows the following morning, we've got 20s and lower 30s for the Panhandle, 20s South Central Alaska, near 30 along the coast. Single numbers in the Copper River Basin. Up north there, low temperatures anywhere from 4 to 19 there in the central interior, a little below zero Yukon Flats to the Arctic coast. On down to Shishmaref, and upper 20s for the Aleutians, upper 30s Alaska Peninsula, followed by highs in the 40s for the Panhandle, near 20 for the Copper River Basin, 15 to 20 central interior, 36 at Nome, single numbers above zero for the Arctic coast, and out west near 40 there for Bethel, and upper 30s for the Aleutians.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic Wednesday morning, central eastern Beaufort Sea coast there and eastern north slope to the eastern Brooks Range, spilling down into the upper Yukon Valley to about Eagle and into the Koyukuk Valley. We've got IFR, marginal VFR down into the central interior, Tanana Valley, Fairbanks area. And a little bit of a break there in between that zone and then the lower conditions, mostly along and south of the Alaska Range, IFR over the southwest interior to Kamishak Bay into Cook Inlet. More IFR, east side of the Kenai Peninsula, eastern Turnagain Arm, eastward across Prince William Sound, and looks like the southeastern Copper River Basin, or just about all the eastern Copper River Basin, all the North Gulf Coast, and about half of the Panhandle IFR, the other half marginal, Kodiak Island marginal, and Bering Sea, we've got over the south central areas, IFR that covers Adak and Atka, and marginal most everywhere else. Afternoon forecast, that area of VFR there, St. Lawrence Island and to the south, kind of gives way. Conditions start to lower a little bit, but still not too bad with some VFR left around throughout the day into the afternoon. IFR, northern Bering Sea, including the Pribilofs, St. Matthew, and Nunivak Islands, right up along the southwest coast of Cape Newfoundland, then goes inland there into the mountainous terrain there, southern Kuskokwim Valley, Auckland Mountains, Kilbrook, those areas, and some areas IFR even up toward Nikolai and McGrath, and the western interior there along and east of the Nolato Hills. And IFR, but A little less now up along the North Gulf Coast, western Prince William Sound, southern slopes of the Central Alaska Range, and the Panhandle, mostly IFR. And for the up on the Arctic coast Thursday morning, conditions continue to improve. VFR, just about all the coastline, and just a little bit of marginal VFR for the North Slope, but along the Brooks Range in the south, marginal VFR with areas of IFR, all the way down to the North Gulf Coast. Heavier IFR, more widespread. There from the Chukchi Sea through the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, northern Bering Sea, again including Nunivak Island and St. Matthew Island. Looks like the Yukon Delta as well. Mostly IFR for the Panhandle, but some areas marginal like Yakutat and, say, Port Alexander down across Prince of Wales Island to Ketchikan, Metlakatla in the net. Southern Bering Sea, some pretty good VFR taking hold there, but mostly away from any land areas. Aleutians all marginal, eastern Aleutians as well, Alaska Peninsula. IFR there on the south side, Pacific side, east or roughly around Sand Point, northeastward to Kodiak Island. And for the afternoon, IFR, most of Kodiak Island, Fogneck Island, the Barrens, marginal IFR along and south of the south and east side of the Kenai Peninsula, western Prince William Sound, and also along western Cook Inlet to the eastern slopes of the Alaska Range. And that same pattern, except a little bit surges of IFR there as you head west. And also up along the southern slopes of the Brooks Range, we've got IFR, and southern Seward Peninsula. Panhandle, not too bad, VFR, Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay, and most of the eastern areas with marginal VFR, central inside waters to the coastline. Anaktuvik, marginal tomorrow. Adigan, starting out IFR, becoming marginal, and for Lake Clark and Merrill, occasionally marginal conditions throughout the day, marginal for rainy, marginal for windy. And Isabel, marginal VFR at times. Montesta, though, looks good. VFR optimistically the entire day. Tanita, occasionally marginal. Portage, IFR, especially on that eastern approach. And Chilkoot and White, IFR. Freezing levels, south of the Panhandle and south of the Queen Charlotte's, 2,000 feet just south of the Alaska Peninsula. Icing system coming in, that next system. Not too bad icing-wise, just some isolated areas of considerable moderate rime icing with the lighter stuff reaching the southwest coast late in the day, and some lingering icing of the mixed variety for the North Gulf Coast and the northern Panhandle down to about possibly Port Alexander. And the jet stream ridging sort of over the eastern interior, southeast interior. We have that upper low there just west of Yakutat, and then upper ridging over the southern Panhandle. And wind's not all that strong in the jet south of the area. We got 95 knots south of the Fox Islands. That's about it. Note the southerly flow now in over the central eastern Bering Sea. And at 9,000 feet, 60 to 95 knot winds there over the southeast Bering to the Fox Islands, with lighter winds over the interior areas in the Gulf and, of course, the Panhandle. And 3,000 feet, 65 knot winds with that Bering Sea storm. Northwest 50 there coming into the central Aleutians. And widespread moderate chop below 7,000 feet, especially for small aircraft for the southwest coast, southeastern Bering Sea, Pribilofs, and from about Atka eastward across the Alaska Peninsula. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecast.
Floating hundreds of miles from Earth, astronauts get a unique perspective of our planet. While they might recognize landmarks, space is the only place they can see the very edge of our planet's atmosphere.
From orbit, particularly looking at the horizon, did bring to mind how thin the atmosphere is. It's like an onion skin around this great big ball of the Earth.
This uppermost layer of Earth's atmosphere, the ionosphere, also overlaps with the very beginning of space. It's the job of NASA's new mission, GOLD, the Global Scale Observations of the Limmendisk Instrument, to study this region, a region that isn't just for astronauts to explore, but that affects humans every day down on the ground. For one thing, this layer of the upper atmosphere helps protect us from harmful radiation and energy emanating from the sun. But in our modern society, it does so much more. It affects the smartphone that sits in your pocket and the radio waves that guide our airplanes. The ionosphere is a crucial layer of the atmosphere through which our communications and GPS signals travel. And when this region changes, it impacts those communication signals. Changes can occur above this region from the sun's activity, also known as space weather. Changes can also occur below from Earth's weather, such as hurricanes and wind patterns. GOLD connects the dots between how space weather and Earth's weather shape the upper reaches of the atmosphere. But this region isn't easy to study. The ionosphere spans roughly 60 to 400 miles from Earth's surface, which is too high for aircraft and scientific balloons, and the lower regions are too low to easily study with satellites. What are attainable, however, are the swaths of red and green light shining out from the upper atmosphere. Formed when the sun's rays hit atmospheric molecules, this light, named airglow, comes from green and red bands of glowing gas. Some of the airglow is invisible to our eyes, shining in infrared and ultraviolet light, which can only be seen with scientific instrumentation. Taking advantage of our planet's natural glow is gold. The gold instrument, which is about the size of a mini-fridge, is hitching a ride on a commercial communication satellite, SES-14. The satellite's orbit lies 22,000 miles above Earth, where it can record images in ultraviolet light to monitor changes in airglow across the globe. These images give information on the temperature, density, and composition of particles in the upper atmosphere. Gold collects these observations faster than any mission has ever done before. It captures an image of Earth's entire disk every 30 minutes, allowing scientists to see how the upper atmosphere evolves throughout the day. Gold joins a host of missions studying the very nature of space, around Earth, the Sun, and planets. As NASA ventures farther and farther from home, knowing the nature of space itself is crucial for our journey to understand our solar system and beyond.
There's a new class of chemical compounds impacting the Earth's ozone layer and raising concerns among some scientists. But a new NASA analysis indicates stratospheric ozone could actually be impacted more by climate change and the continued release of already banned chemicals. The Earth's ozone hole is showing signs of recovery, decades after the landmark agreement called the Montreal Protocol that banned many chemical compounds harmful to the ozone layer.
So we know the Montreal Protocol was a huge success. This was signed in the late 1980s when scientists and policymakers from around the world gathered together to try to save the ozone layer.
The chemicals they regulated persist in the atmosphere for many decades. They thin the ozone layer and they create a seasonal hole over Antarctica. They basically take away part of our planet's natural sunscreen, and that increases the risk of skin cancer and damage to plants.
Scientists have projected the ozone hole could disappear almost completely by about 2075, but several factors could delay that recovery.
There are some industrial compounds that are not banned by the Montreal Protocol, but as they enter the atmosphere, they will also hurt the ozone layer.
But the unregulated compounds have a short lifespan in the atmosphere, unlike the chlorofluorocarbons that were originally regulated. So they have a short-lived impact on ozone, and we don't think they'll delay recovery by more than a few years.
We projected by 2050, more than half of the ozone-depleting compounds in the atmosphere will come from long-lived substances banned by the protocol.
Because these compounds stay in the air for such a long time compared to the unregulated, short-lived compounds, they will have a disproportionate and lingering impact on ozone. So any non-compliance with the protocol can have significant consequences.
And the really big uncertainty in ozone layer recovery is climate change. There are many naturally produced ozone-depleting substances that are emitted by the oceans. And as the oceans continue to warm due to climate change, those emissions will increase, and that will further delay ozone recovery.
Scientists want to better understand how climate change will affect ozone recovery.
This is a hard problem. As a scientific community, we need to work on this major issue. We now have a powerful new tool to simulate atmosphere and its interaction with land and ocean to study this issue. And that's what we're going to do.
How can you see the atmosphere? The answer is blowing in the wind. Tiny particles known as aerosols are carried by the air around the globe. This visualization uses data from NASA satellites combined with our knowledge of physics and meteorology to track 3 aerosols: dust, smoke, and sea salt. Sea salt, shown here in blue, is picked up by winds passing over the ocean. As tropical storms and hurricanes form, the salt particles are concentrated into the spiraling shape we all recognize. With their movements, we can follow the formation of Hurricane Irma and see the dust from the Sahara, shown in tan, get washed out of the storm center by the rain. Advances in computing speed allow scientists to include more details of these physical processes in their simulations of how the aerosols interact with the storm systems. The increased resolution of the computer simulation is apparent in fine details like the hurricane bands spiraling counterclockwise. Computer simulations let us see how different processes fit together and evolve as a system. By using mathematical models to represent nature, we can separate the system into component parts and better understand the underlying physics of each. Today's research improves next year's weather forecasting ability. Hurricane Ophelia was very unusual. It headed northeast, pulling in Saharan dust and smoke from wildfires in Portugal, carrying both to Ireland and the UK. This aerosol interaction was very different from other storms of the season. As computing speed continues to increase, scientists will be able to bring more scientific details into the simulations, giving us a deeper understanding of our home planet.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back to the AC Ice Analysis. Not much change from yesterday. Heaviest ice there, northwest Bristol Bay there, Togiak Bay west side, and of course well south Nunivak Island, and about roughly halfway between St. Paul Island, Northeast Point there, and Nunivak Island, and back up to around St. Matthew Island, and not much change up over the northern Bering Sea. So moving on to, or just want to make note, a little bit less ice now, almost nothing south of the Forelands there in Cook Inlet. And for the coastal water forecast, south to southwest, 15 knots on the north coast of the Panhandle, west 15, south coast, light winds over the inside waters, mostly from the south or southwest or west at 10 knots, seas pretty slight 2 to 4 feet. Outlook for Thursday, northwest 15, northern inside channels there, central areas, Stevens Passage north at 10, and north winds 15 knots for Clarence Strait. And on the south coast, north to northwest, 20 knots, seas 12 feet. Lighter winds up north, west-northwesterlies there for the north coast at 10 to 15 knots. And for Prince William Sound, small craft advisories tomorrow, east winds 25 knots with 6-foot seas. Small craft advisories also for the North Gulf Coast, east-southeasterlies at 25 knots, seas around 15 feet. And north at 20 for the Barren Islands. Small craft advisories, Kamishak Bay and all of Cook Inlet. South of the Forelands, 30 knots from the north, and Kamishak Bay northeast at 30 knots. Northern Cook Inlet, north 25 knots, seas about 5 feet. Outlook for Thursday, northern Cook Inlet, winds come down to barely a breeze at 10 knots out of the northeast with subsiding seas, and northeast 20 south of the Forelands. Small craft advisories continue for Kamishak Bay, but become southerly and actually coming up to 30 knots in the afternoon, seas building to 8 feet. 25 knots for the Barren Islands and the North Gulf Coast, south to southeast at about 20 knots, east 20 knots for Prince William Sound. Kodiak Island on the eastern coastline there, looking at westerlies, 30 knots, 21-foot seas, and Chillicothe Strait south at 20 knots. Gale warnings for the Alaska Peninsula, southeast 40 knots. Gale warnings for the Bristol Bay area too, southeast 35 knots with 7-foot seas. Outlook for Thursday, east side of Kodiak Island, small craft advisories, southerly winds 15 knots, and that extends all the way down to Castle Cape. Castle Cape to Cape Sarachev, south 25 knots and southeast 25 in the Bering Sea side of the peninsula. Actually, from Cape Sarachev all the way up across Bristol Bay, southeast winds 25 knots. Fox Islands, tomorrow, storm warnings, south to southwest, 45 to 50 knots. And flat-out storm warnings also for Adak and Atka, west to southwest, 50 knots, seas 19 to 28 feet. And then winds start to come down just under the storm force threshold west of Adak around Amchitka, 45 knots from the northwest. And then west of Kiska, Shimei and Attu, west 25. North 30 knots there for the area from Shimei to Kiska. Northeast 30 knots for the Amchitka Island area, and Adak and Atka east-southeast at 30 knots, southeast 30 knots for the Fox Islands, seas running 12 to 21 feet. Full gale south of Nunivak Island, east 40 knots tomorrow, minimum gales for the Pribilofs, and St. Matthew Island, east or northeast at 35 knots, and St. Lawrence Island, northeast 30 knots, brisk wind advisories there, as well as the Yukon Delta coast, where winds will be east at 30 knots. For the Thursday outlook, southerly winds break in to the northern Bering Sea and St. Lawrence Island area at 40 knots from the south. For gale warnings all the way down along the Yukon Delta coast, where they'll be southeast at 35. Brisk wind advisories for the Kuskokwim Delta coastline, east winds 30 knots. Small craft advisory, St. Matthew Island and the Pribilofs for 30-knot winds. Central and eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, east winds at 15 knots. West side pretty light, maybe even variable, but mostly southerly at about 10. Swing it around to 15 knots from Cape Beaufort to Wales. And for the Thursday outlook, southeast winds pick up. So we got brisk wind advisories, all the zones up there with the 30-knot winds from Wales up to Cape Beaufort. And then east, 25 knots, very uniform there for the entire stretch of the Arctic coast. For tonight, could be some light snow, fog, and flurries, reducing visibilities up over the Arctic, along the Arctic coast and north slope, especially the east side there. But south of the Brooks Range, pretty dry, all the way down to south of the Alaska Range and to the east of the range, except for the low west of the Kuskokwim Mountains. Actually, in the Kuskokwim Valley, snow showers will extend out to the west Nunivak Island. Low moves right over Kodiak with rain, possibly moderate, hitting the Kenai Peninsula at sea level and not making it too much farther inland. High pressure dries it out over the southern southeast coast. Big storm rolls up and northward to the Bering Strait on Thursday and weakens, as you can tell, Thursday afternoon. Keeps it unsettled in the west.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.